Hi, this is Rick. I'm on page 168, and I'm going to work through the algorithm workbench number 1, 2, and maybe 3. We're just going to kind of work through them and kind of give you an idea of how to translate what you learned in Chapter 4 into the reality of SFC. So what I've done is started SFC, and now we're going to go ahead and fill it in. So as we do this, I'm going to run through it, and we're going to read the problem, and then we're going to actually do it. So here we go. Algorithm workbench number 1. Design an if-then statement. Okay, so that means it's going to be a single decision, or a flowchart with a single alternative decision structure. See, that's what they told us then. That assigns 20 to the variable y and assigns 40 to the variable z if the variable x is greater than 100. Now, what they've done here is they've given you a very simple problem, but they've worded it so that it's so awkward it would take a genius to figure it out. So we're going to figure it out together because we're geniuses. So here we go. We're going to look at the first thing, and I'm just going to go down and put in the condition. So I'm only going to put in the process here. So I'm going to just double click here, and I'm going to put the process in. All right. And that process, and I better drag this over so you can see it. That process is actually going to be a single decision. We just have to figure out what it does. So here we go. Notice that if I click here, that's a single decision, an if-then, and I'm going to click OK. And here's the tricky part. The first thing you have to do is click the one on the right, the little example on the right, because true comes out the right side. That's the only one we're going to use in this class. But unfortunately, you're going to change it every single time. I don't know, it's just what the program does. So we're going to change it every single time to the one on the right. So our condition is, and we got to read this again carefully, it says, if, there's our clue, okay, that's going to be a condition, if the variable x is greater than 100. So it's going to be easy. I'm going to say x greater than, I better click in there, x greater than 100. All right. What if it's 100? No, it doesn't count. It's got to be greater than 100. So that's our condition. And so I'm going to click OK. And that's the rough start of our single alternative decision. So we've got the if, then, else. See where the if? The if is right up here. The then is right there. That's what we're going to do if it's true. And the end if is right here. The only thing is we need to have a couple statements in there. What is it going to do? I mean, an if statement can be beautifully written in as far as the condition goes, but if it doesn't do anything, then it doesn't perform its job. So I'm going to double click here on the hotspot, and I'm going to drag this back in so you can see it. And we're going to make a couple things happen. So if, in fact, x is greater than 100, then we want y to equal 20 and z to equal 40. So I'm going to make that just two separate statements. So they're going to be a sequential process. So I'll click OK, and I'll drag this back in so you can see it. And we're going to say, congratulations, if x is greater than 100, then y is equal to 20. And I'll press Enter. Looking good. And I'll double click on this little hotspot, and we'll drag that back in so you can see it. And this is going to be another sequential process. And I'll click OK. And I'm going to say, congratulations, if x is greater than 100, then z is going to equal 40. I'll press Enter. And that's it. We just did the problem. That's all there is to it. Now, if you want to see the pseudocode, first thing I'm going to do is go to View, Generic Pseudocode, and look over here on the right, and you'll see that's exactly what we put. If x greater than 100, then, see, those are our words, if, then, and if, then y equals 20, z equals 40, end if. Ta-da! That's the whole thing. All right? Okay, so I'm just going to select this, and I'm going to delete it, and we're going to go ahead and do number 2. So number 2 says, design an if-then statement. Okay, That means a single decision, or a flowchart with a single alternative decision structure. Hey, we did that. That assigns 0 to the variable b and assigns 1 to the variable c if the variable a is less than 10. It's the same thing. They've just done it upside down to confuse us. So here we go. We're going to go back to the process, and that's all we're going to write in this particular case. And we're going to do a single decision. Ba-doomp. All right, and it wants to know the condition. And, oh, by the way, we're going to click on one on the right. So our condition is that a less than 10. So I'm going to say a less than 10. And I'll press enter. And there's my condition. My condition is inside the little diamond. What happens if a is less than 10? Well, then we have a sequential process. And that sequential process is that b is equal to 0. And I can do this as one statement, but I'm going to do it as two. And here's another sequential process. And our variable c equals 40. And we're done. If we look over on the right, you can see the pseudocode. It says, if a less than 10, then b equals 0, c equals 40, and if. We're done. Let's try number 3. So I'm going to select this whole structure, and I'm just going to tap the delete key, and it goes away. Number 3 on page 168 says, design an if-then-else statement. Okay, now we've got a dual alternative statement here that assigns 0 to the variable b. Okay, and I see that they're doing the same thing backwards. It's really easy if we just kind of look for the if statement. So I'm going to look for the if statement. It says if the variable a is less than 10. Okay, so that's going to be my condition. That's right there in the middle of the second line. So I'm going to double click here, and I get my dialog box up here. And this time I'm going to select a double decision, an if-then-else statement, and I'm going to click OK. And here again, we're going to want the one on the right, so the true always comes out to the right side. And I'm going to say my condition is a less than 10. Yay! All right. So I'll press enter. And there's my condition. Notice it's got a then and an else. Here's the then, here's the else. So if a is less than 10, what do we want to have happen? Well, we want to have b equal to 0. See that where that is in this? Okay. So if it's true, then I'm going to say the sequential process is b equal 0. And I'll press enter. Okay. What happens if it's false? Now, if we look over here at the right-hand side, we see the if, then, else, end if. But there's nothing under the else. So let's make sure that our statement gets there. So what happens if it's the else, if it's false? Well, it's going to be a sequential process. And the sequential process is b is going to equal 99. You see that in the paragraph? It's right there in the last line. Otherwise, so now it's a sequential process. So I'm going to say b equals 99 and press enter. And there's my structure. That's what number 3 looks like. So we've said the condition is a less than 10, and that's why they kind of hide it down there to make it a little bit more difficult than it really should be. If it's true, b is going to be 0. If it's false, b is going to be 99. So here's our 4 parts. Notice our pseudocode says if a less than 10, then b equals 0, else b equals 99, and if. Yay! If we look at it down here, here's our if, then, else, and if. And that's all there is to it. Those are the first 3 algorithm workbenches, and hopefully now you've seen how the knowledge that we've learned in the chapter can be translated into the reality of using SFC in programming. Bye for now.